Have you ever wondered what exactly separates a good English speaker from an absolutely mind-blowing one? Or how the words we use reflect massive shifts in our careers and love lives?
Oh, that is such a fascinating intersection, right? I mean, the way our language just sort of evolves right alongside our most fundamental human experiences.
Yeah.
We literally invent new words because we are, living totally new realities.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow. You're sitting there right now listening to this, and you're probably already feeling pretty confident in your English.
Right, which is great. You should be.
Totally. But today, we are going to scale the wall from like very good to truly exceptional C1 level English. We're going to be mastering the language of modern careers and 21st century relationships.
Yeah, we are basically taking you on a journey to that next tier of fluency. And to do that, you have to completely strip away the textbook rules.
So true. Today, we have exactly 15 essential advanced English concepts and vocabulary clusters to explore. And stick around because we do have a specific bonus challenge for you at the very end of our conversation today.
I love that. And, reaching the C1 plateau is a massive accomplishment for you. Like, if
Right.
you are at this level, you've already conquered the mountain of basic grammar. You understand verb tenses. You have a really solid foundational
You
vocabulary.
can order the coffee, you can ask for directions, all of that.
Exactly. But the journey to true mastery, that final, highly elusive leap, it's all about refining nuances.
Hmm.
It's about understanding subtle cultural contexts. And most importantly, it is about replacing those stiff, predictable textbook dialogues
Hmm.
with the messy, spontaneous, highly unpredictable reality of real-life communication.
Right. But I mean, I want to push back on that idea of preparation just a little bit, though.
Okay, sure.
Because I think that transition is exactly where so many people get stuck. We're moving from the goal of just like mastering English on paper to surviving unscripted, really complex situations. Ordering a coffee. Like we said, you can do that in your sleep.
Oh, absolutely.
Easy. But real life doesn't hand you a script.
Right.
So how do you prepare for a conversation when you literally have no idea what the other person is going to say? I mean, isn't that fundamentally impossible to script out beforehand?
Oh, yeah. It is impossible to script. And that is actually the entire paradigm shift you have to make at the C1 level.
Okay, so what do you do instead?
You can no longer rely on memorizing your way through an interaction. Instead, it is believed that you have to develop linguistic agility to navigate what we call the gray areas.
The gray areas. I like the sound of that. What exactly does it look like?
These are the ethical dilemmas, the workplace office politics, or interpersonal conflicts where there's just no clear-cut black and white answer. Real life operates entirely in the gray, right? And your language needs to reflect that ambiguity.
Right, right. Like if you're in a high stakes job interview and they throw a total curveball question at you, I mean about a gap in your resume,
Yeah.
or you're debating a highly controversial topic with a close friend, you have to think on your feet, and you definitely don't want to sound defensive.
Exactly. And the language you use in those precise moments completely dictates how sophisticated and credible you sound. It is believed that mastering diplomatic, advanced phrases is the key here, rather than just resorting to blunt disagreement.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of this then. Give me an example.
Sure. So if you're cornered, simply stating that's a gray area, immediately signals to your conversational partner that you understand the multi-layered complexity of the issue. It shows you're not just jumping to some naive binary conclusion.
I use that one all the time when I need to stall. Like, oh, well, that's a gray area.
It works perfectly for that.
Hmm.
But I guess it's more than just stalling, right? It is a strategic maneuver. It buys you time to think while simultaneously making you look highly analytical.
That makes total sense. What are some other phrases that help navigate this without, completely shutting the other person down?
Well, another crucial one is, I see where you're coming from.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Because at a B1 or B2 level, a learner might just say, I understand you, but I see where you're coming from, is incredibly powerful in high-stakes environments. It shows you comprehend the other person's underlying motivations and their perspective without actually conceding the argument.
It's like you're validating their reality.
Exactly. And when people feel validated, their neurological defenses lower, making them way more open to your counterpoint.
It's basically a conversational diffusion tactic. You aren't saying, I agree, you're just saying your perspective exists. But what if you hit a total wall? Like, what if you truly cannot reach a consensus with this person?
Then you deploy the classic, let's agree to disagree.
Ah, yes. The polite exit.
It really is. It's a highly diplomatic way to move past a severe impasse
Yeah.
without damaging the long-term relationship. You are formally acknowledging the stalemate, which allows both parties to just save face and walk away with their dignity intact.
And no one has to admit defeat.
Precisely. And to take this a step further into profound emotional intelligence, using a phrase like, if I were in your shoes, demonstrates active empathy.
If I were in your shoes, that requires a lot of imagination on the speaker's part, I think. You're actually projecting yourself into their life circumstances.
You're actively trying to inhabit their viewpoint, which is basically the pinnacle of C1 communication. Now, the trick isn't just understanding these phrases conceptually, it's actually deploying them naturally under the real-time pressure of a disagreement.
Which brings me back to my original problem. If I can't script my boss yelling at me or my partner bringing up a difficult topic, how do I actually train for it? Like, physically prepare?
You have to manufacture the pressure in a controlled environment. The most effective method is to actually record yourself responding to random, highly unpredictable prompts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, think of a complex workplace dilemma, for instance. Deciding whether to bend the truth slightly to appease an angry client, just to close a major deal. Hit record on your phone and force yourself to talk through the ethical implications out loud for 2 uninterrupted minutes. Then, you have to listen back critically.
Oh, listening to your own recorded voice is a special kind of psychological torture. Like, everyone hates it.
Oh, it is deeply uncomfortable,
Grr.
but it is an objective audit of your fluency.
Hmm.
As you listen, you aren't just listening for grammar mistakes, right? You ask yourself, where did I hesitate?
Yeah.
Did I stumble and use filler words like and too much?
Or did I just completely freeze up?
Exactly. Were there missed opportunities to deploy a phrase like, it's a gray area, or I see where you're coming from? Using voice recording tools bridges that massive gap between just knowing the vocabulary passively and actively wielding it under spontaneous pressure.
You're basically building a private laboratory to make your mistakes in safety before you take them out into the real world. That actually makes a lot of sense. So we've established how to navigate the ambiguity of unscripted conversation. But to do that effectively, we really need to talk about the actual raw materials we're using.
The vocabulary itself.
Exactly. Because at the C1 level, you aren't struggling to find basic words anymore. You know thousands of words.
Yeah, the obstacle at this stage is rarely a lack of words. It is how those words are stored and retrieved in your mind. It is highly recommended to just completely abandon traditional alphabetical vocabulary lists.
Throw the flashcards away.
Throw them away. Rote memorization of isolated dictionary definitions will actually hinder your fluency at this level. What you need to build instead are what we call thematic vocabulary clusters.
Thematic vocabulary clusters. That sounds like something a neuroscientist would say. What does that actually look like in practice for the listener sitting at home?
Well, think of it as building a 3-dimensional mental map of words, organized around a single specific topic or scenario rather than just a linear list. You are learning how words behave in their natural habitat.
The company they keep, basically.
Exactly, the situations they belong in. And this fundamentally relies on understanding collocations.
Collocations. I always think of them like linguistic chemical bonds. Like some words are just magnetically attracted to each other in English, and if you try to force the wrong words together, they repel each other.
That is a brilliant analogy. Collocations are the words that native speakers intuitively pair together through just years of cultural habit. For example, in English, we say strong coffee. We absolutely never say powerful coffee.
Right.
Even though if you look at a basic dictionary, strong and powerful are technically synonyms.
Yeah, if someone offers me powerful coffee, my brain immediately flags it. Like, I understand what they mean, obviously, but it sounds slightly off. It sounds translated rather than spoken.
It signals a lack of cultural immersion. Or take the phrase bitter disappointment. We do not say sour disappointment, even though bitter and sour are, related taste profiles.
Totally. Sour disappointment just sounds wrong.
It does. Understanding these natural, chemical-like pairings is what makes your English sound seamless. And inextricably linked to collocations is the mastery of connotations.
Connotations. That's the emotional baggage a word carries around, right? The sort of secret meaning hidden underneath the dictionary definition.
Precisely. It is the subtle shade of judgment or emotion or registry beneath the literal definition. A classic example in the consumer space is the difference between the words cheap and inexpensive.
Oh, this is a great one.
Technically, functionally, they both mean exactly the same thing. An item does not cost a lot of money,
Mm,
but their connotations exist in entirely different universes.
absolutely. Like, if I compliment your new watch and call it inexpensive, I am stating a fact about the price. I'm saying you found a great deal, you're financially savvy.
Right, it's a positive thing.
But if I call your watch cheap, I am actively insulting the manufacturing quality. I'm saying it is poorly made and probably going to break tomorrow.
Yeah, the word cheap carries a heavy negative emotional baggage, whereas inexpensive is neutral or, like you said, actively positive. Another corporate example would be describing an employee as stubborn versus persistent.
Oh, wow.
Both mean they refuse to give up, but one gets you fired and the other gets you promoted. Mastering these thematic clusters, understanding which words bond together, and sensing their emotional baggage, that is what gives your vocabulary real C1 depth.
If you are enjoying this deep dive, please like, share, and subscribe.
So having the correct, nuanced vocabulary mapped out in your brain is essential, of course, but it remains entirely theoretical until you physically produce the sounds. We have to examine the actual mechanics of fluency.
Right, the physical side of it.
Yes. How you physically deliver these words and string them together in real time is what creates that illusion of effortless mastery.
And this is where I think a lot of learners get incredibly frustrated. You can have the best, most clustered vocabulary in the world. You can know all the nuances of inexpensive versus cheap. But if your physical delivery is choppy, you still just sound like a student, not a master.
It's so true. Fluency is often described as that elusive quality where the language just glides without friction. And one of the most rigorously tested techniques to achieve this frictionless glide is a practice called shadowing.
Shadowing, like following someone around in a dark alley.
In an auditory sense, it is exactly like that. Shadowing involves listening to a piece of audio from a native speaker, like a high-quality podcast, a TED Talk, or a news report, and repeating it aloud a split second behind them.
Oh, I see.
You are mimicking them in real time.
Yeah.
You're matching their pace, their pauses, and their pitch.
That sounds incredibly difficult. It's like trying to sing harmony to a song you only half know while the song is playing at full speed.
It is highly cognitively demanding, which is exactly why it works. It bypasses your analytical brain and forces your mouth, your tongue, and your vocal cords to physically adapt to the natural muscular rhythms of English.
So you bypass the overthinking.
Yes, you are not just repeating vocabulary words, you are internalizing the melody, and this directly forces you to master connected speech.
Okay, connected speech. This is the phenomenon that drives learners absolutely crazy. It's when native speakers seem to just smash all their words together into one giant, indistinguishable sound.
It is how language operates efficiently. Native speakers rarely articulate individual words in a vacuum. Words bleed into one another.
Yeah.
The most common everyday example is the phrase, "What do you want to do?"
Right, we never say it like that.
Exactly. In natural, connected, fluent speech, a native speaker will almost never pronounce every single syllable crisply. The boundaries between the words dissolve, and it becomes a single phonetic block that sounds more like "what you want to do."
What you want to do? It really does just melt together. But it isn't just about speaking faster, is it? There's a psychological component to it. I mean, when I hear someone use connected speech naturally, I instantly trust their fluency more.
It builds subconscious rapport. It signals to the listener that you belong to the same linguistic community. Shadowing forces you to naturally produce those connected forms because you literally don't have time to over-enunciate.
That makes total sense.
It also acts as a masterclass in sentence stress. Sentence stress is the practice of emphasizing specific words, usually the most important information, in a sentence to convey your exact, nuanced meaning.
Okay, so if we take a simple sentence like, I didn't say he stole the money. If I emphasize the first word, I didn't say he stole the money, it heavily implies that someone else said it. I'm deflecting blame.
Right.
But if I shift the stress to the verb, I didn't say he stole the money, it implies that maybe he just borrowed it or found it. The physical stress completely changes the psychological meaning of the sentence without changing a single vocabulary word.
That is the hidden architecture of the language. Now, beyond the physical, muscular mechanics of speaking, we must elevate our understanding of the structural mechanics. We have to look at grammar.
Ah, grammar. At the C1 level, grammar isn't about building the foundation of the house anymore, is it? You already have the walls and the roof. C1 grammar is about the interior decorating. It's the highly specific, subtle choices you make to give the house its unique character and mood.
I would modify that analogy slightly to say it is load-bearing interior decorating. We're not talking about basic verb conjugations here. We are analyzing subtle syntactic structures that allow you to express highly complex abstract meanings efficiently.
Okay, hit me with one.
The first of these structures is the mixed conditional.
Mixed conditionals, they always sound so intimidating when you see them in a textbook. What is the actual functional purpose of a mixed conditional in a real conversation?
Well, it's essentially a tool for time travel.
Time travel.
Yeah, it allows you to talk about hypothetical situations that cross different temporal realities.
Mm.
You're usually combining a past, unreal condition, something that never actually happened, with a tangible result in the present moment. For example, if I had taken that job in London, I would be living in a much smaller apartment right now.
Oh, let me break down the mechanics of that. If I had taken that job in London, that is a reflection on a past event that did not occur. You declined the job.
Right.
I would be living in a much smaller apartment right now. That is the hypothetical consequence occurring in the present moment. You are tangling the past and the present together to analyze cause and effect. It's how we express regret, or, I guess, relief.
It is incredibly efficient for expressing complex personal reflections. Another vital structural tool is inversion for emphasis. This is the technique of deliberately altering the standard subject-verb-object word order of an English sentence to add dramatic weight, formality, or intense emphasis to a statement.
How does that actually sound in practice? Like, do people really use inverted sentences outside of classic literature?
They absolutely do in professional or persuasive contexts. Instead of a standard sentence like, "I have never seen such a catastrophic failure in our supply chain," a C1 master addressing a boardroom might say, "Never have I seen such a catastrophic failure in our supply chain."
Never have I seen. Oh, wow, that shifts the tone entirely. By putting the negative word never right at the front, it stops being just a statement of fact and becomes this grand, almost cinematic pronouncement. It commands the room's attention.
Yes. By inverting the auxiliary verb and the subject, you force the listener to pay much closer attention to the scale of what you are saying. And the final grammatical tool in this advanced toolkit is nominalization.
Nominalization. The word itself sounds like a massive corporate buzzword. What does it actually do to our sentences?
It is the linguistic process of transforming verbs or adjectives into nouns. This is heavily utilized in formal, academic, or high-level corporate English. Its primary function is to make your communication sound more objective, concise, and authoritative.
Wait, how does turning an active verb into a static noun make you sound more authoritative? Doesn't active voice usually sound better?
Active voice is punchy, sure, but nominalization creates strategic distance.
Interesting. Give me an example.
Let's look at a scenario where a project has failed. A standard active sentence might be, "The management team decided to postpone the product launch, which surprised all the investors." Here, decided is the verb, and the management team is clearly the agent taking the action.
Right, they are the ones who messed up.
Exactly. But if we apply nominalization, we transform that verb into a noun. The sentence becomes, "The decision to postpone the product launch surprised all the investors."
The decision, oh, I see the trick there. You completely removed the management team from the sentence. You aren't focusing on the flawed humans who did the deciding. You're focusing on the abstract, unquestionable concept of the decision itself. It removes blame entirely.
It does. It sounds infinitely more professional, objective, and somewhat detached. It creates a protective layer of formality that is absolutely essential in corporate diplomacy or academic writing. And speaking of writing, these advanced structural tools are deeply intertwined with how you consume and produce the written word. We cannot master English just by talking. We have to master the text.
Exactly. If we are refining our English for the real world, we have to look at how we interact with emails, reports, and articles.
At this level of proficiency, reading can no longer be a passive absorption of words from left to right. It must become a highly strategic, active process. You must attack the text with a clear methodology.
Okay, what's the first step?
First, you utilize skimming for the gist, rapidly sweeping your eyes over headings, topic sentences, and conclusions to map out the author's main argument before reading a single detail. Then, you transition to scanning for detail hunting for specific data points, statistics, or counterarguments.
So you aren't just letting the text wash over you like a novel, you are interrogating it. You are extracting what you need efficiently.
Precisely. Furthermore, to build those thematic clusters we discussed earlier, you must actively highlight unknown words, define them strictly within their contextual sentence, never in isolation, and force yourself to summarize complex paragraphs out loud in your own words. This guarantees total active comprehension.
That sounds intense.
It is. And when it comes to producing your own written text, whether it is an email or a thesis, the ultimate directive is to edit ruthlessly.
I love that phrase, edit ruthlessly. It implies that your first draft is always going to be a bit of a mess, and you have to be your own harshest critic. You have to cut the fluff. Why do advanced speakers overwrite?
It is a really common psychological trap. C1 learners often try to prove their intelligence by cramming 5 adjectives into a sentence when one precise noun would suffice. Ruthless editing cures this. You must focus intensely on sentence variety.
Because otherwise it gets boring.
Exactly. If all your sentences follow the same length and rhythm, the reader's brain will literally fall asleep. You must be hyper-vigilant about your tone, ensuring it aligns perfectly with the power dynamics of your audience. You need robust topic sentences to act as signposts. And crucially, you must weave complex linking words into your paragraphs.
Linking words, the structural glue. Words like consequently, nonetheless, in contrast. They show the logical relationship between two completely different thoughts.
Yes, let's do a side-by-side comparison to hear the difference this makes. Let's imagine a paragraph about digital technology. A basic B2 level paragraph might read like this. Many people think social media is bad. It makes people feel sad. They compare themselves a lot to other people online.
I mean, it gets the point across. It's factually accurate, but it's incredibly staccato. It sounds like a child's book.
It does. Now, if we apply our C1 toolkit, if we edit ruthlessly, employ nominalization, and utilize advanced linking words, it transforms into this. Social media can negatively impact mental health by encouraging constant comparison, which consequently leads to profound feelings of inadequacy and anxiety.
The difference is night and day. Inadequacy and anxiety.
Yeah.
That is so much more precise, so much more devastating than just saying sad. And by using which consequently leads to, the whole sentence flows together as one continuous, unbroken chain of sophisticated logic.
That is the power of combining advanced structures with ruthless editing. Now that we understand the mechanics, the collocations, the shadowing, the structural grammar, we are ready to take these tools out into the real world. Let's apply this methodology to our first major thematic cluster, the vocabulary of the modern career landscape.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. We are taking all this linguistic theory and mapping it onto the reality of how we make a living today. And when we look at the modern career, the most persistent, defining debate of our era is entrepreneurship versus traditional employment.
Without a doubt.
It seems like everyone on the internet is telling you to quit your job and start a company. Is the choice between starting a business and getting a 9-to-5 really just a financial calculation? Or is it fundamentally about how we psychologically view risk, security, and our own identity?
It goes far deeper than a financial calculation. It is a fundamental divergence in worldview and risk tolerance. Impartially speaking, both paths offer distinct realities and demand entirely different vocabularies.
Let's break down entrepreneurship first.
Entrepreneurship is inherently defined by extreme localized risk. You are frequently risking your own capital, your personal credit, and years of your time. However, the counterbalance is the potential for unlimited income, nonlinear growth, entirely irregular hours, the heavy burden of full responsibility for both catastrophic failure and massive success, and total creative control over the vision.
It is the ultimate high-wire act, and you are doing it without a safety net. You get to write all the rules, but if the tent collapses, it is entirely on your shoulders. The psychological toll of that must be immense. On the flip side, we have traditional employment, which often gets a really bad reputation online, but serves a massive purpose.
Traditional employment generally offers a low to moderate risk profile. You are rarely risking your personal savings to keep the corporation afloat during a bad quarter. It provides the psychological comfort of a fixed salary, which creates long-term financial stability and predictability.
Which is very nice to have.
It is. The hours are typically bound by a schedule, and the burden of responsibility is diffused across a massive team or an organizational hierarchy. You are a component working within a predefined, highly optimized system.
So choosing between them really comes down to a difference in internal motivation and mindset.
Indeed. The mindset of a successful entrepreneur is almost exclusively visionary. They are big-picture thinkers who possess a high tolerance for ambiguity. They are comfortable operating in the unknown and are highly self-motivated. They identify inefficiencies or gaps in the market and possess the compulsion to build a solution from nothing.
And the traditional employee?
Conversely, the highly effective employee mindset is often deeply task-oriented and specialized. They excel at working within established frameworks, collaborating as integral team players, and executing specific, complex roles with high efficiency.
And their ultimate end goals, like how they actually plan to finish their careers, are totally different as well, aren't they?
The exit strategies are fundamentally opposed. An entrepreneur is intensely focused on building an asset, a scalable entity, a brand, a piece of intellectual property that they can eventually sell for a large capital gain or even take public.
They want the big payout.
Exactly. Whereas a traditional employee is generally focused on a linear path of internal promotions, aiming for increasing salary bands, leading to traditional retirement supported by a pension, a 401k, or accumulated personal savings.
Okay, so we have the broad conceptual map of this career landscape. Let's dig into the specific language focus for this cluster. We need to explore some of these heavy-hitting corporate words, explain their nuances simply, and look at how to actually deploy them in a boardroom to sound credible. Let's start with a foundational one, autonomy.
Autonomy refers to self-governance, independence, and the freedom of self-direction. In a corporate context, it is the ability to make your own strategic decisions without being micromanaged by a superior.
Oh, nobody likes being micromanaged.
Right. An example sentence highlighting this would be, modern entrepreneurs often value daily autonomy over predictable schedules. They are willing to sacrifice comfort for the freedom to direct their own actions.
I think a lot of people crave autonomy until they realize how much discipline it actually requires. Next up is a word we hear nonstop, venture.
A venture is a specific business project or undertaking that inherently involves a significant degree of calculated risk. It is a step into the unknown commercial waters. It is distinct from a small business because it usually implies a desire for rapid growth or disruption.
Okay, how would we use it?
For example, her new venture focuses on utilizing AI in green tech. The word implies that the outcome is not guaranteed, but the potential is massive.
You sound so much more sophisticated pitching a new venture rather than just a new project. Okay, how about scalability? This has become such a buzzword that it almost feels like it's lost its meaning. How do we use it intelligently?
Scalability is a crucial measurable metric in modern business. It is the specific ability of a business model, an app, or a system to grow exponentially and handle vastly increased market demand without suffering a drop in quality or a massive increase in operational costs.
Right, it's about growing without breaking.
Exactly. For instance, the investors passed on the restaurant chain because it lacked scalability. It means the model works for one location, but it breaks down if you try to open 1,000 locations.
That is the holy grail for any startup. You build it once and you sell it 1,000,000 times. Now, let's look at the cornerstone of the traditional path, consistency. We all know what it means to be consistent, but how does it function at the C1 level?
At this level, consistency isn't just a personal habit. It is a vital corporate asset. It means being steady, universally reliable, and maintaining quality standards over a long period.
Give me a sentence.
Traditional blue-chip jobs offer the consistency required to plan a family. Or, in a branding context, we need to maintain consistency across all our marketing channels. It is about predictability and trust.
Which is incredibly valuable when the world feels chaotic. Next is another massive buzzword, innovation.
Innovation is the systematic act of creating new ideas, disruptive methods, or novel products that fundamentally change a market. It is not just invention, it is invention applied to a commercial reality. Relentless innovation is what drives entrepreneurial success in the tech sector. If you stop innovating, you become obsolete.
And finally, a concept that everyone is chasing, job satisfaction.
Job satisfaction is a psychological metric. It refers to how deeply content, challenged, and fulfilled you are with your daily work, independent of your financial compensation.
So it's not just about the paycheck.
No, not at all. Surveys show that millennials consistently rank job satisfaction and purpose higher than base pay. It highlights the emotional reward of a career over the purely transactional nature of work.
Those are phenomenal anchor nouns for our thematic cluster. Now, let's inject some action into this vocabulary with some essential phrasal verbs. What does it mean when a founder talks about trying to set up a business?
To set up is an active foundational phrase meaning to start, establish, organize, or incorporate something from scratch. It involves the logistical heavy lifting. For example, she spent 6 months dealing with legal paperwork to set up her new international accounting firm. It implies laying the permanent groundwork.
And what about scale up? That obviously relates to the noun scalability we just discussed, but how is the verb used?
Precisely. To scale up is an aggressive, forward-moving verb phrase, meaning to rapidly expand a business's capacity, workforce, or market reach. After securing the Series B funding, the company aggressively scaled up their manufacturing operations. They took their proven model and multiplied its size.
Let's round out this career cluster with some idioms, because honestly, nothing makes you sound more native, more deeply embedded in the culture, than dropping a perfectly timed idiom in a professional setting. Let's start with a classic, take the plunge.
To take the plunge means to finally commit to a highly difficult, life-altering, or risky course of action after a prolonged period of hesitation, fear, or overthinking. It is a powerful metaphor for standing on the edge of a cliff and finally diving into deep water.
Right.
You could say, after 5 years of dreaming about it and saving money, he finally took the plunge and resigned to start his own agency.
I love the visceral visual of that. What about think outside the box? I feel like this one is a bit of a cliche now. Do people still use this in serious boardrooms, or is there a better way to think about it?
It is undeniably a cliche, but it remains a functional shorthand in corporate English. It means to think creatively, to approach a problem from a highly unconventional perspective rather than relying on standard operating procedures. To solve this unprecedented logistical nightmare, the supply chain team really had to think outside the box. While a cliche, its meaning is universally understood, making it a very efficient tool.
And our last career idiom for this cluster, wear many hats.
To wear many hats means to hold multiple, often wildly different roles, or have highly varied responsibilities simultaneously within a single organization. This is the defining characteristic of early-stage ventures.
Oh, absolutely.
In a seed-stage startup, you have to wear many hats. On Monday, you are the CEO pitching investors, and on Tuesday, you are the customer service rep handling complaints.
It perfectly captures the chaos of building something new. Okay, so that is our modern career cluster built out. We have the foundational concepts, the nuanced vocabulary, the phrasal verbs, and the idioms. But just as our professional lives require this entirely new vocabulary to describe the realities of tech and startups, our personal lives have undergone an equally massive shift. A shift that demands entirely new words to describe how we connect, date, and build families.
This transition brings us to our second major exploration, the evolving language of relationships. The social and romantic landscape has transformed so radically in the last 20 years that the English language has had to sprint just to catch up with our behavior.
Let's talk about that historical transition for a second, because I think we often fall into the trap of romanticizing the past. We look back at traditional relationships and marriages like they were these perfect, simple fairy tales of eternal love. But historically speaking, weren't traditional relationships largely based on cold, hard economic necessity rather than the modern soulmate ideal?
It is a vital historical context to establish. Impartially speaking, looking at the sociological data, traditional relationship models and the institution of marriage were frequently rooted in economic survival, property rights, and societal stability.
It wasn't about finding your best friend.
No, it was, at its core, a practical, often contractual partnership designed for the rearing of children and the consolidation of resources. It featured rigid, clearly defined, and legally enforced gender roles. Typically a male provider handling the public sphere and a female homemaker managing the domestic sphere. It was highly structured, socially predictable, and for many, deeply inflexible.
Right. It was an economic survival mechanism. You needed a partner to literally run a farm or maintain a household. But today, the expectation of what a relationship should provide has shifted completely.
Modern relationships have shifted dramatically away from those rigid, economically mandated roles. The contemporary ideal is built on individual fulfillment, fluidity, and flexibility. There is a massive new emphasis on emotional intelligence, the psychological ability to deeply understand, communicate, and navigate one another's internal feelings.
Which is a lot harder than just running a farm together.
Oh, much harder. And crucially, modern dynamics strive to be egalitarian. This means they are based on the principle of absolute equality. The division of household chores, financial burdens, and major life decisions are negotiated based on individual preference, capacity, and skill, rather than being assigned automatically by gender.
And we absolutely cannot talk about modern relationships or the language of modern relationships without talking about the giant glowing screen in the room, the digital dating landscape. Technology hasn't just changed how we talk to people, it has totally rewired how we evaluate human beings.
It has fundamentally dismantled geographical and social limits. Historically, your dating pool was confined to your immediate physical community, your town, your university, your workplace. The digital landscape has created a massive, unprecedented volume of choice.
Which sounds great at first.
It does. While having access to thousands of potential partners can be positive, sociologists and psychologists note that this sheer abundance frequently leads to a pervasive sense of disposability.
Disposability. That is a heavy word. What does that mean in a romantic context?
It is the psychological phenomenon where individuals feel that because a potentially better, more compatible match is always just one digital swipe away, they are significantly less likely to invest the deep emotional labor required to sustain a single complex connection. It fosters a culture of constant upgrading.
It is the paradox of choice. Having too many options actually makes you feel paralyzed, and it makes you incredibly dismissive of the people right in front of you. And this digital world has spawned its own highly specific, often brutal slang. Let's define the core mechanic. Swipe culture.
Swipe culture refers to the behavioral phenomenon created by modern dating applications, where users make extremely rapid binary evaluations of potential human partners based on highly superficial information.
Like split-second decisions.
Yes, you are typically judging a complex human being based on 3 curated photos and a single sentence of text. You swipe right on the screen to indicate physical interest and left to discard them entirely. It reduces the nuance of human attraction to an instant, gamified visual judgment.
It is incredibly fast, highly efficient, and honestly a bit ruthless. It changes how we view each other, and because the initial connection is so superficial, the disconnection is often equally brutal. Which leads us to a word that everyone under 40 has unfortunately experienced: ghosting.
Ghosting is a remarkably common, highly researched, and deeply painful modern phenomenon. It occurs when a person abruptly and unilaterally cuts off all digital and physical communication with someone they have been dating or conversing with, offering absolutely zero explanation, warning, or closure. They simply vanish, like a ghost.
It leaves the person who got ghosted entirely in the dark, analyzing every single text message they ever sent, wondering what they did wrong. It is the ultimate conflict avoidance strategy. And then there is an even darker, more malicious digital slang term that requires C1 understanding: catfishing.
Catfishing moves beyond mere avoidance into severe active deception. It is the deliberate act of creating a completely fabricated online identity, frequently using stolen photographs and entirely invented life stories, in order to lure someone into a deceptive romantic or emotional relationship over the internet.
That is just awful.
It is a profound psychological breach of trust that is only made possible by the inherent anonymity of the digital landscape.
It is wild to think that we literally had to invent these nouns and verbs just to describe the emotional chaos caused by the internet in the last decade. Now, moving beyond the dating apps and into the actual lived structures of relationships today, people are actively coloring outside the lines of traditional monogamous marriage. And as advanced English speakers, we need to understand the labels and the vocabulary impartially to navigate modern society. Let's start with a very modern, highly prevalent term: situationship.
A situationship perfectly captures the anxiety of modern commitment. It describes an ambiguous, poorly defined romantic or sexual connection. It occupies a confusing middle ground.
The dreaded gray area again.
Exactly. It involves more intimacy, time, and emotional connection than a standard friends with benefits scenario. But it actively lacks the clear commitment, explicit labels, and future-oriented expectations of a formal, dedicated relationship. It exists entirely in the gray area we discussed at the beginning of our deep dive.
It's like you are acting like you are together, you are going on dates, but you aren't officially together, so neither person is allowed to demand accountability. It can be incredibly confusing and emotionally draining. Moving on to another structure, what exactly defines an open relationship?
An open relationship is a specific non-monogamous structural arrangement where both partners have explicitly, mutually, and openly agreed that it is acceptable for either of them to pursue and maintain other romantic or sensual relationships outside of their primary partnership. The defining foundational characteristic here is not secrecy, but rather full, enthusiastic consent and radical transparency.
Got it. It's an agreement, not a betrayal. Now, how does that differ from the term polyamory? They are often used interchangeably, but they aren't the same thing, are they?
They are related but distinct. While an open relationship often focuses on physical openness while maintaining a single primary emotional bond, polyamory generally encompasses a broader, more complex philosophy. It is the practiced desire or identity of cultivating multiple, loving, deeply intimate, and fully committed relationships simultaneously.
Ah, so it's multiple full relationships.
Yes. Again, this is predicated on the full, informed consent of everyone involved. Polyamory is intensely focused on managing multiple deep emotional and romantic connections, which requires a massive amount of communication and scheduling.
Okay, those are highly specific alternative structures. Let's look at a term that applies to a massive mainstream portion of modern couples worldwide: cohabitation.
Cohabitation is a formal sociological term that simply refers to the arrangement where two people who are romantically involved choose to live together in the same primary residence while remaining legally unmarried.
Just living together.
Exactly. While historically stigmatized in many cultures, cohabitation has now become a standard, widely accepted, and often financially necessary milestone in the progression of many modern relationships before or instead of marriage.
And regardless of which structure you choose, traditional marriage, a situationship, or polyamory, at the absolute core of all healthy dynamics is a concept called emotional intimacy.
Yes, emotional intimacy is the psychological lifeblood of a connection. It is a profound sense of closeness built on a bedrock foundation of mutual trust, reciprocal vulnerability, and highly open communication. It is the rare ability to share your deepest fears, your unpolished thoughts, and your most authentic self with another human being with the absolute certainty that you will not be judged or abandoned.
It is the bedrock of a real partnership. You can't fake it. But human connections aren't always healthy. We need the vocabulary to describe when things go toxic. Let's define the opposite end of the healthy spectrum, being codependent.
A codependent dynamic is generally recognized by psychologists as a highly unhealthy, destructive behavioral pattern. It describes a situation where one person becomes excessively, almost entirely emotionally and psychologically reliant on their partner for their sense of self-worth.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Very. It typically involves a person chronically sacrificing their own fundamental needs, their personal identity, and their boundaries in an obsessive attempt to maintain the relationship or to rescue a dysfunctional partner. It represents a total collapse of healthy autonomy.
It's when two people lean on each other so incredibly hard that if one person takes a single step back, they both instantly fall over. It's suffocating. Now, to wrap up this relationship cluster, we have to touch on a beautiful but logistically complex modern reality: cross-cultural relationships.
With the massive rise of global corporate mobility, international study, and digital communication, partnerships that cross national, linguistic, and cultural borders are incredibly common. These relationships offer profound personal enrichment and a blending of worldviews, but they introduce highly unique, deeply stressful logistical challenges.
Like what?
Well, such as navigating complex visa architectures, immigration laws, and the financial burden of long-distance management.
And it isn't just the legal logistics. It is the subtle language nuances and the deep, often invisible cultural clashes, right? When the honeymoon phase ends, how do you actually communicate?
Precisely. Even if both partners speak flawless C1 level English, the underlying cultural context of the words can clash violently.
Yeah.
Humor often does not translate. Societal expectations around the role of extended family, child-rearing philosophies, or gender roles can be diametrically opposed. Successfully navigating this requires a highly developed skill that linguists and sociologists call intercultural communication competence.
Intercultural communication competence? That sounds like a diplomatic superpower.
Right.
What is the actual mechanism of it?
It is the conscious, highly trained ability to communicate effectively, empathetically, and appropriately with someone from a fundamentally different cultural background. It involved extreme behavioral adaptability, active, non-defensive listening, and the rare willingness to genuinely understand an entirely different worldview without instantly judging it as wrong through your own native cultural lens. You have to suspend your own cultural baseline.
And sometimes this intense blending leads to a sociological process known as assimilation.
Yes. Assimilation, within the context of a cross-cultural partnership, refers to the gradual, often multi-year process where one partner slowly adapts to, absorbs, and fully integrates into the daily customs, language, and overarching cultural norms of their partner's home culture, often moving away from their own native traditions in the process. It is a profound, sometimes painful psychological and lifestyle adjustment.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We have mapped out the complex vocabulary and the driving philosophies of the modern career landscape, and we have decoded the intricate, rapidly shifting language of 21st century relationships. We've talked about the gray areas, the collocations, and the grammar, but knowledge sitting in your notebook is entirely useless without physical application. How do we make this advanced language our own? How do we actually change the way we speak tomorrow morning?
You cannot passively absorb fluency by merely listening to this deep dive. You must actively, physically train your brain and your vocal cords. It is believed that establishing a rigorous, uncompromising daily C1 English routine is the only guaranteed path to crossing the final plateau to mastery. It requires severe dedication, but the actual daily time commitment is surprisingly manageable if the structure is highly focused.
It is exactly like a physical fitness routine. You can't just walk into a gym, lift an incredibly heavy weight one time, and expect to be strong for the rest of the year. The heavy lift doesn't change your body. It's the 15 minutes of focused effort every single day that actually tears and rebuilds the muscle fibers. We are building linguistic muscle.
A perfect biologically accurate analogy. So, what does this daily C1 workout actually entail? It is broken down into 5 highly focused, distinct segments that target different neurological pathways. First, dedicate 15 minutes to reading high-level, complex news or academic articles aloud. This forces your mouth, tongue, and jaw to physically articulate complex syntactic structures and advanced vocabulary in real time.
Reading out loud is a completely different neurological process than reading silently in your head. When you read silently, your brain is lazy. It tries to skip the hard words or the complex grammar, but your mouth can't skip them. You are forced to confront your pronunciation gaps.
Exactly. You find the friction points. Second, spend 10 focused minutes intensely interacting with the vocabulary notebook. But crucially, do not just review alphabetical lists. Review the thematic clusters we built today. Review the collocations, the chemical bonds, and the subtle connotations. Actively draw mind maps connecting words like autonomy and venture to scalability.
Okay, so that's 15 minutes reading aloud to build the muscles and 10 minutes on vocab clusters to organize the filing cabinets in your brain. What is the third step?
The third segment is the core of the workout. 20 solid minutes of shattering podcasts. Find a high-level, native-speaking audio source, put on your headphones, and forcefully mimic the speaker a split second behind them. Focus entirely on capturing their rhythm, their emotional intonation, and their connected speech.
Right.
Let their native fluency become your physical muscle memory.
That is the high-intensity cardio of this linguistic workout. If you do that for 20 minutes, you are going to literally sweat. Your mouth will be tired.
It is exhausting, but transformative. Fourth, dedicate 15 minutes to writing and editing journal entries. Choose a highly complex topic, perhaps analyze your own thoughts on a modern career landscape, or dissect a recent situationship you observed in your friend group. Write a paragraph, and then, as we discussed, edit it ruthlessly.
Cut the fluff.
Exactly. Apply nominalization. Check your sentence variety. Force yourself to integrate advanced linking words like consequently and nonetheless.
Be your own worst, most unforgiving critic on paper. And the final step, to round out the hour.
The final 15 minutes must be dedicated to pure, spontaneous speaking practice. Find a language exchange partner, use a conversational AI app, or simply record yourself answering a highly complex, unpredictable prompt. The singular goal of this final segment is to survive the conversational gray areas without a script, utilizing the diplomatic phrases we learned.
So that is roughly an hour a day. 1 hour a day to completely, fundamentally transform your English from good to absolutely undeniable. Which brings us to our ultimate overarching takeaways for this entire deep dive today.
The overarching lesson regarding language mastery that we want you to internalize is this. Fluency isn't about speaking faster, it's about speaking better. It's about quality over quantity. It is about precision, emotional nuance, and making deliberate, highly conscious choices with the words you deploy.
I absolutely love that distinction. Speaking better, not faster. Rushing just makes you stumble. And if we connect that philosophy of precision back to the relationship segment we just explored, there is a beautifully mirrored thought to consider about human connection.
Yes. When navigating the intense complexities of modern dating, situationships, and cross-cultural connections, remember this core truth. Relationships are less about desperately searching to find the exact right person and far more about doing the internal work to become the right person.
Becoming the right person. It completely shifts the focus. It is all about cultivating self-awareness, personal growth, and emotional intelligence. You have to do the heavy lifting on yourself first before you can expect a healthy dynamic with someone else.
Precisely. Whether you are building a new commercial venture, navigating the beautiful friction of a cross-cultural relationship, or putting in the grueling daily hour to master C1 English, the fundamental, non-negotiable requirement is a profound commitment to your own continuous evolution.
If you are sitting there right now and you are serious about mastering your English, if you are ready to put in that hour a day, right, I stay committed in the comment box below right now. Claim that intention, and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. And now, as promised, here is your bonus at the end.
We want to leave you with two final, highly common, heavily utilized idioms that seamlessly bridge both the professional corporate world and the intimate personal world. The first idiom is to bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet. Historically, this goes back to before modern medicine, when soldiers had to literally bite on a lead bullet to endure the pain of surgery. Today, it means to force yourself to do something highly unpleasant, deeply uncomfortable or difficult that is absolutely necessary and that you cannot avoid any longer. Like, I really didn't want to have that difficult, emotionally draining conversation about where our situationship was going, but the anxiety was killing me, so I finally had to bite the bullet and bring it up.
An excellent, highly relatable example. The second essential idiom is the ball is in your court.
The ball is in your court. This obviously comes from the game of tennis. It means it is now legally or morally your turn to make a decision, take the next step, or respond to an offer. The responsibility has shifted. Like, I spent all weekend writing the proposal, and I finally sent my boss the pitch deck for the new venture. I've done all I can do. Now the ball is in his court.
Now it is time for your specific challenge. We want you, the individual listening to this right now, to write your own highly original example sentences using either bite the bullet or the ball is in your court in the comment section below. Practice using these idioms in a C1 context right now.
Yes, get into the comments section. Show us your advanced sentence structures and show us what you've got. We want to see those linking words and that C1 vocabulary.
And as we conclude our deep dive today, I will leave you with this final overarching thought to mull over as you go about your week. As you actively navigate your own career ventures and as you negotiate your modern relationships, ask yourself this: are the words you choose to use every single day keeping you trapped in an old, limiting mindset? Or are they actively scaling up the life you truly want to build?